This Hangout is now live. Okay, so I just pushed the button and it says that it's live. Hello, everyone. I am Jamila Niera of Women's Work, and I'm going to be later joined by Queen V of Spot TV, and we're waiting for her to join us right now. Um, Today, we're going to be talking about Women's History Month. This is the end of Women's History Month, as you know. This is the 31st of March. And I'm still amazed. Let me just say, I'm still amazed that we have to have a Women's History Month because women make history all day, every day, just by showing up and being fabulous. Let me just say that. Um, with that said, and to that end, I think anytime you have to have a month allocated for a particular faction of society means to say that for some reason they're not getting the cool points and the accolades that they deserve on the regular, consistent daily basis. So what that says about women and what that says about our society overall and why we need to have a Women's History Month um, is very sad, because it seems to say that we don't really honor women in totality every other day of the week, as we should. I've been thinking about all the powerful women that are historical figures who have been instrumental in shaping me as a woman. I think of all the writers that I was introduced to. For instance, as I was coming up, I remember the first time I ever read Maya Angelou, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. I believe I might have been a little bit too young to totally grasp the seriousness and the impact of what she was really, what she was really writing about, and the true um, nature of her life as a woman, because I was probably 14, 13 when I read it. And I can clearly say that I was not a woman, although I'd like to have thought so at that time. I'm sure, when you're 14, you think that you moving into the womanist realm means that you are now fully fledged. Now I have my cycle, so I'm a big woman. I can so tell you now that that is not the measure of a woman, just because you bleed monthly. I'm sure we all know that. Um, but I think of Maya Angelou, I think of women like Toni Morrison and J. California Cooper, all of whom were writers. And, as an aspiring writer in my youth, um, it was certainly a thing that I really wanted to make sure that I paid attention to. Who were the people whose voice was heard and needed to be heard? I studied English when I was in college, incidentally, and I read a lot of literature before then. But what I really wanted more than anything was to know what was written so that I would know what else needed to be said. That's why I decided to study literature in English, not because I wanted a degree in English, or that I necessarily wanted to do anything more than to learn how to research a topic, so that when I was ready to write about it, I would have the tools necessary to do that. So that was the main reason why I decided to, study women writers. Um, so the voice of womanness is still being silenced, which is why I started with women writers. Because even women who are writing about contemporary issues and contemporary times, what I've noticed specifically about the genre of urban literature that's now out, a lot of it is some foolishness and fluff, if you let me tell it. And for those of you who actually write and or love that genre, if you like it, I love it. But personally, I think it sort of discounts who we are in our total message overall. I think it just kind of glorifies the ethnic, um, all the uncool parts about being an ethnic woman in an urban setting. That's not to say that that these aren't real stories, and that these women also have a voice. That is not what I'm saying. And if you think that's what I'm saying, then I'm going to come right out and tell you that that's not what it is. What I am saying is that we are not a monolithic people as Black people. We are not a monolithic gender as women. And we are not monolithic, certainly, as far as our experiences go in the world. So even though each one of us have our own unique story, it is very important that the culmination of the stories gives an accurate depiction of who we are in our totality, if that makes sense. It might sound like the same thing, but it's the same thing, only different, like I like to say. I will speak about also, you know, what's most important to me is that we honor the women who show up in our lives, in our daily walk. We often talk about, you know, these great and fantastic women throughout history who have done these wonderful things. You know, we think of people like, okay, we've already gone through the writers, but we think about women like Cleopatra and Sappho and Santiwa, and Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth. The many names of women, Fannie Lou Hamer, the many names of women whom we could never call up and we could never thank enough for the work that they have done to bring the voice of women to a point where it can actually be strong enough to be above a whisper and be heard by the masses, right? But the other part about it is that we have to figure out ways that the women who touch our lives every day, how do we honor them? The lady next, for instance, I have a woman who lives across the street from me, and her yard is immaculate all the time. She impacts me because her yard looks fantastic and mine doesn't. And so every time, every season, I try to figure out how, right? how I'm going to get to a place where my yard can actually look a little bit closer to hers. Now, I'm never, you know, she's in her 70s, and the woman is a master gardener if ever there was one. You know, she's got the green thumb, and I think her toes might be green too. That's how bad this girl is. Now, I'm not going to go all to be her. I probably won't get to be her until I'm about her age, to be honest with you, because there's a lot to learn. But the important thing to me is to make sure that I let her know on a regular basis that I like what she's doing, and I like how her home makes my home sparkly a little bit more. You know, it makes me conscious of something that I may normally not have been paying too much attention to. So she is an unsung hero in our community, if ever there was one. We all look to her, and Miss Pinky is the most awesome, right? We go to her and ask her questions about how do you do this? How do you make this? How do I get this flower to grow back that I planted 2 seasons ago and now it's not coming back? And she'll say, oh, plant a banana peel or something, something very, like, why did I think of that? But you're not Miss Pinky. And that's why she's Miss Pinky and I'm not. But these are the kind of people that I'm speaking of. What about the women that you hang out with on a regular daily basis? We were talking, a friend of mine and I earlier, we were speaking about how I heard a statistic recently that says that you are the sum total of the 5 people that you hang out with the most. So if you hang out with 5 people, right, and that's your core crew, and you start thinking about what kind of characteristics do they really have? Okay, so who are these people? Do they enhance you as a person? Do they grow you as a woman? Do they help you to become more grounded and centered in who you are as a person? Do they grow your life in any way? If they do, and especially if they are women, you must figure out a way that you can honor them and thank them for all that they do and how they show up in the world, and who, you know, just who they are to you. So these are the things that I really like to discuss, because I think that we don't do enough as far as the everyday thankfulness. I think about even the women in my family. You know, these women are teachers. They are nurses and professional women who, and some of them are housekeepers. You know, they're not housekeepers, but homemakers. And certainly they keep house. But these are people who do fantastic things all the time. You know, my mother, for instance, raised 8 young people who are all viable citizens of the world now. I'm pleased to say nobody's out there doing crazy stuff. You know, we're all making our mark on society and doing the best we can with what we have and how we were raised. This woman is no different than any other woman in history, except that nobody knows her name, except the people who are in her circle. Case in point, we have got to get to a point where we honor the things about the women that we value, appreciate, respect, love, right? So to that end, you know, think about this being the last day of Women's History Month. I'd like us all to begin to think about exactly what value do the women who move through your world bring to it? You know, what do these women bring to you? What do these women, how do they impact your life? How do they make you better? How do they grow you? Do you feel as if that if that's the 5 folks that you hang out with, if you feel like they are contributing to the whole that makes you who you are? I mean, are they bringing something positive, or could you pick 5 more folks, or should you pick 5 more folks for that matter? These are the kind of things that we should be thinking about, because we're raising daughters. So many of us are raising daughters. I'm raising 3 lovely girls, and I'm happy that they are able to see me link my life to some women who are actually doing powerful, wonderful things in the world, who are growing themselves and their idea about who they are. They see me consistently in constant conversation, not constant, but they see me with these women enough that they know that they are important to me, that these women I value. These are the women who make up my 5 folks. And I think they'll value the friendship of women a lot better, because they've seen how impactful my friendships have been on my life, and they have actually gotten to know my friends and my network of women very well, all of whom sow into my children also, and vice versa. You know, that's the important thing about creating a cohesive group of women to grow with, right? Because you have to trust one another, first of all. That's the first thing that has to come into play when you're thinking about who do you choose for your network. The women have to be within themselves. They have to be grounded and centered. They have to, this is my checklist, not necessarily yours, but who are these people, and are they about what they say they're about in their own lives? Okay. Are they fun? Because I am not going to hang out with anybody whose company I don't thoroughly enjoy. That's the first thing that I, keep in mind. Do I want to hang out with these babes? If I don't want to hang out with them, guess what? I'm out of your club. There's no reason why I'm going to go any further. I'm not going to hang out with you. I just, that's the end of it. And this is, of course, just business related. But if we're talking about the 5 folks that you hang out with the most, unless these are my coworkers, which I don't really have coworkers that move like, where I'm that close to them. So it really does come down to the 5 people that I'm hanging out with socially for me, because I tend to mix business and pleasure. Do they appreciate and value womanness? That's number 3. Because even if I value and appreciate womanness and they don't, then guess what? That's a problem, because I'm going to value them more than they value me, and that's never good. So that's something that I always have to ask. So do they value being a woman? Do they appreciate the men in their lives? Because we as women cannot be whole beings without the other counterpart. Now, I'm sorry, I don't care what anyone says, but it's very challenging to stand separate from the men in our lives, and say, well, we're so much better, or we're more powerful, or we don't need men, right? Because I have heard people say things like, oh, we don't really, men, I could do without them. I'm not going to say that. I'm out of that club. I'm not going to say that at all. I raised a son, and he's a powerful, wonderful person. If I didn't have him in my life, I'd be a totally different woman. He grew me he made me a mother and grew me in a different way than my daughters ever could. You know what I'm saying? So I don't ever want to negate or discount who he is and how he came to be a very important part of what I do and who I am as a woman. But the last thing that I think is the most important is, do they really, even though I say this is the last, but this is the first, do they have a spiritual base? And do they have a spiritual constitution that they grow their lives based upon? Because believe me, if you don't really, I'm not a person that says, oh, you've got to go to church all the time and you've got to do anything more than just have a personal, consistent relationship with your Creator. Do you understand and know that without God, without a Creator, without a spiritual base, you are allowing less of yourself to shine through? The more you allow God to shine through your own life, the better grounded you are, and the better able, I feel, that you are able to serve. Because that's really what we came here to do. As women especially, we work very closely in partnership with God every day, all the time. I work as a doula and a birthing professional. Most of you know me from that area of my life. But I was trained as a doula in 1999, when most people didn't even know what a doula was, and have been in the field of women's health and wellness since then. One of the things that I always have to come back to is that when you work with women who are giving birth, there is no way to not know that God is present and available and a powerful force in every aspect of our lives. I just recently, for instance, helped and supported a mom who had vaginal birth after cesarean, and she'd had 2 cesarean births before this. And this is not the first time I've supported a VBAC, a mom who wanted to have a vaginal birth after cesarean. But this woman, why she sticks in my mind so much, not so much is because I just helped her have that baby a few days ago, but because she's a young Black mother. And very often we're told, we're given the least amount of information. We are maligned in the media, especially when we're young, and she already has 2 other children. So the assumption is that she's just some young babe that's out here just having a bunch of children and not really giving a lot of thought to it. But here's a mother who actually did her own due diligence. She looked into it. She heard all the stories that they told her about the why that she had to have the C-sections previously, and did her own research and discovered that that wasn't necessary. Not only was the second cesarean unnecessary, but she felt like she wanted to try to have the birthing experience of her choosing this time. So she consciously seeked out a doula, me, and she actually went through the paces of actually getting some further education about the process. What are the risks? What are the benefits of going this route as opposed to another route? Why would I hire a doula if my husband is present? A lot of the questions that we ask, or that moms will ask, who actually have given some thought to how they bring their children to this reality, right? So because she's so youthful, I think that a lot of times people just negate her quest for more information. And I've seen it happen myself, even when I've worked with other women in the childbirthing experience. A lot of times they'll just kind of, gloss over whatever it is they're doing because they're just thinking that they're going to be able to do whatever it is because they're the professionals and we're the lady, don't really know a lot. But this young lady, I was so impressed by her because she made choices that were conscious, that were informed, and that were powerful. And she stood in those choices each time when she was faced with an opportunity to make a new choice. She kept making the same choice that she made. And I remember right now, something's coming back to my mind. I was at a lecture recently, and the trainer said something that still sticks with me. He says, plans change, but decisions don't, right? So that means to me that, you go through your entire, you make a plan and you say, okay, I'm going to do this, that, this, that, this, that. And constantly things are coming at you that will change the outcome of the plans that you've made. But the decision to do whatever it is, right? Like, let's say you decided that you were going to go to school and you're going to go this route, you're going to do that thing and do this thing. But then suddenly, you know, money runs out, or you don't get a loan, or this, that happens. You know, these things, life things happen that create a situation where now you can't do what you said in the way you said. But the decision to go forward and to go to school doesn't change. You just got to figure out a new plan every time. So the plan to be a powerful, strong presence as a woman has to be a decision and not a, you know, because the things that happen to us, you know, sometimes we get into relationships that somehow impact negatively on us going forward. There might be some sort of issue as far as we're talking about with the husbands, or, you know, the fathers of the children, or, you know, we may have plans that are affected by other people's plans. So your plans are not always autonomous. And so when you know that, I think it's important to make decisions and then make plans based on the decisions that you make. And that said, we must start thinking about, how do we teach our daughters how to make decisions that they can continue for, you know, no matter what's happening, they can continue with that decision to do well, to be a powerful presence as a woman. Because think about it, we raise the children as women. Without women, without mothers, societies fall away. And I believe that that has a lot to do with, you know, why it's important to perpetuate the power place that women stand in, and why it's important to give honor and reverence and thankfulness and consideration to the women who grow us every day. This is a circular conversation because it encompasses everything that I think of and everything I believe. My company is called Woman's Work, and because it's all woman's work, everything that is about being alive and being well and being usable, you know, in order for spirit to really use you, you've got to be able to tap into that place in yourself that says that I can be a powerful presence and I can be of support to the greater picture that God is trying to put together. So to that end, and with that said, please make sure that on this last day of Women's History Month of 2015, that you find and identify and remember and reflect upon the women who have grown you, who have shaped you, who have sown into your life and made you a better woman. And give them a thank you. Just call them and say, hey, you know, I appreciate you. You know, thank you for showing up. And thank you for allowing me to practice being a woman around you and with you, right? Because those are important things. So honor the women, honor yourself, because you're doing a good job too, you know. And make sure that whenever you're standing, that you stand on the shoulders, you make sure that you understand that you're standing on the shoulders of all those powerful, fantastic, strong, faithful women who came before you. Don't forget. Have an awesome, powerful, and productive day.